Hello, this is Lori Michelle, the Moshiach with GPS, guidance to God's promised salvation, redemption. Before I get started, because this one might be a long one, it's available online. You need to read this. He said it's required reading. You're not going to get past him and be welcomed into the world to come unless you read Mashiach's Torah Part 2, written in Israel with the help of Hashem. You don't have to take my word for it. You just have to make your decisions, and I hope you make good ones. Anyway, let's get started. This might be a long one. This one has got conversations in it and visions all within the past few days, and Hashem wants all of it in this video. So here we go. I had a conversation with another Rebbe on the other side, Rebbe Edelstein. He just died recently. True. Standing before God, he gave me a vision of three men standing before him. He wants me to share that. And world redemption's first responders. He gave me this morning a very detailed dream, a long sequence, and it took place at Nancy Pelosi's home. I don't make any of this up. If you think that I make this up, God bless you. And he just said he won't. But I don't make it up. This is going to be a very interesting video, and it might be a long one. So watch it in segments if you need to, if you don't have the time. Friday morning, the first thing that Hashem wants me to share is I woke up to Edith Bunker in rapture. If you watch my last video post, I spoke about Gene Stapleton and Joan Rivers and a different Rebbe, Rebbe Schneerson. He showed me Edith Bunker, exuberant and in rapture, as though the redemption was happening. And I loved seeing it, but the rapture is not here. It's not here. We're not even close to it. He just said, don't say that. Okay, whatever. So when I saw Edith Bunker, I said, is Joan here too? And I heard her yell out, I love you, in a raspy voice. I was like, I love you, Joan Rivers. And then, right then, I saw a very old man, a rabbi. And I looked, and he was trying to take the lens of his eye out, as though, if you've ever seen someone with contact lenses, they take their lenses out, but this was his actual lens of his eye, trying to take it out of his head. And I looked, and he looked like he was in severe spiritual pain. And I said, oh, Rabbi Edelstein, I said, you're bringing him to me now. I've spoken to him once before, by the way. And if he was here, he wouldn't even be looking at me. He wouldn't talk to me. He'd never read my book. He said, Hashem says he would eventually. But on the other side, they're supporting me. They're ready. They're ready to run on love on the other side, because they don't have they're not encumbered with these physical eyes, with lenses that refuse to see what they don't want to see. So that was what he was doing, was trying to take those lenses out of his eyes. And then I heard him say, with his head in his hands, I am so ashamed. And he said, you're right. I would not have listened to you. I would not have looked at you. And I am so ashamed. So I'm going to leave it at that. That on the other side, they don't have those restrictions. They see with their soul. They don't see with these eyes. Oh, yeah, right. A woman. Oh, right. Naked arms. Oh, right. You're not what I have been taught to expect. So that's where we stand with that. The next thing Hashem wants me to share is yesterday on Shabbos, he showed me a vision that made me laugh. It likely will not make you laugh, but he showed me a man in front of me with dark hair, dark eyes, beady eyes, scary looking eyes, but I wasn't scared because I knew instinctually and immediately it was Hashem. He was disguised as some skinny, dark-haired man with beady eyes and a stethoscope. And the metaphor for that was he heals all flesh. He's the healer. And the man with the stethoscope, which was supposed to be Hashem, turns and he's faced with three men who looked a little bit like the Three Stooges to me, a little bit like Larry, Moe, and Curly. And there was one man in the middle whose head was spinning around off of his head like he was completely crazy, like a cartoon character, like you would see on a cartoon. And the man to his side hit him in the head and said, "Get away from me. You're going to make the king think that I'm crazy too." And he stood up at attention in front of Hashem, like, "I'm okay. I'm not crazy." And you know what that does for you? When you face Hashem and you call the other guy crazy, nothing. You face Hashem alone. And disparaging someone next to you or some other group does nothing for you. In fact, it makes it worse for you. So you're all pretending and pointing fingers, and the Democrats are crazy, the Republicans are right-wing fringe conservatives, and they're crazy, and you're all crazy. But when you face Hashem, none of that matters. You face him directly, and he sees through all of it. So he wanted me to share that with you. And the third thing that I'm supposed to share was this morning, he showed me a very long dream at Nancy Pelosi's house. And I was in her backyard, and there were lots of people milling around Nancy Pelosi's house. And there was this little girl who was barely 2 years old. And it was Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter. But in the dream, I went up to the little girl who looked lost and needed help. And her name was Karen. Karen, Karen. A dumb white lady, Karen, the slur that they're using on the media in the news to disparage white women. Karen. But in my dream, little Karen, Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter, had the name Karen, and in my dream, Nancy's name was Karen also. Interesting, right? So I picked up little Karen, Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter, and I held her in my arms and I said, I think, honey, I'll bring you to your grandmother. And she was hugging me and holding me. And I don't have it in front of me. I have an iPhone with a pink cover. And there were men in the backyard talking and speaking to each other about very important issues. They were very busy. And I couldn't hold little Karen, Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter, and hold my phone at the same time. So I asked one of the men, I said, "Would you mind? Could you hold my cell phone for me?" And he looked at my pink phone. There's a lot, this dream is packed with information. We could talk about this for hours, And he says, one day we will. So I said, can you hold my pink iPhone? And he looked at it and he said, I don't have time. I was like, please, I can't hold the little girl and my phone. So he said, all right. And he grabs it, my phone for me. And I carried little Karen Pelosi into the house. And I'm looking for Nancy, Karen Pelosi. Her name was Karen in the in the dream. And she looks at me and she looks at her granddaughter, and she was completely disinterested because there were so many people. And she's a famous politician, and she was just so busy with everybody milling around in her house that she was like, yeah, whatever, take care of her. And I was like, okay, I'll take care of her. So I was holding her and my back started hurting and my arms were tired. And then there was a man in her house, in Nancy Karen Pelosi's house, with a white kippah, but a silky one, like the kind you would get at a bar mitzvah, the giveaways. And he was wearing this white yarmulke, kippah. By the way, they're color-coded. So if you're very serious, you wear a black one. If you're a Zionist, you wear a knit one. They're color-coded. You belong to a certain group. This guy had a bar mitzvah one on that someone gave him. And he was holding little Karen, Nancy Pelosi, for me because I was so tired. And he played with her, and then he got bored, and he said, here, take her back. And I said, okay. And my arms were like jello. I was just so tired of carrying her, but I couldn't let her go, and I couldn't let her fall to the floor. So I did what I could to find the strength to hold little Karen Nancy Pelosi. And I took her outside with me. And outside in the backyard was my mother. He says this is packed with meaning. And my mother, who is old now, I'm old, so my mother's very old, was very young in this sequence. And I'm holding little Karen Nancy Pelosi. And my mother's there. My mother's very happy. My mother's a Democrat. My mother's very happy to be there. And she's very liberal also. So, and then there was my cousin who had died of coronavirus. She was there, but she was like 3 or 4 years old. She was very young. And she looked like she had a disability. Actually, she was a disabled person. And Nancy Pelosi showed up, Karen Pelosi, in the dream, and she looked at my cousin and made a disparaging comment about her being disabled or something wrong with her. And my mother defended my cousin, which was her niece, and said, nothing's wrong with her. She's fine. I don't know what that was all about, but another time, just put it in your hat, put it in your pipe and smoke it. So I'm watching all this, and then I turn with little Karen Nancy Pelosi in my arms. And again, grandmother Nancy Karen Pelosi had no interest in her granddaughter. So she went off, and I then realized little granddaughter of Nancy Pelosi, she could walk. So I put her down and I said, sweetheart, you want to walk now? And she turned to me very tenderly and thanked me for taking care of her. And she walked away. And then I heard a whole conversation of a whole bunch of people talking about government programs that they could get money from and take advantage of. Because after all, we're Americans and we can take that money and we deserve it. And they were looking for schemes and ways to make money through government programs. And I was thinking the whole thing was very strange. And so I walked to the front yard of Nancy Karen Pelosi's house. And in the front yard was yellow life rafts everywhere. The whole front lawn, yellow life rafts, like there was some sort of emergency. And I was scared, and I said, what's going on? And everybody was excited, like it was the Super Bowl. It was an emergency. People's lives were at risk, but everybody was excited, like, this is so much fun. And I'm looking at the life rafts and I'm saying, why is this fun? This is not fun. And then I heard an announcement that my children were the first responders to take a post. My kids and their spouses. And I thought, wow, my kids, good for them. I'm going to go to the sea and see what my kids are up to. And I sure hope some other first responders show up and take another post, because it sure looks like we need a lot of help. And then from there, from all the life rafts, I'm catapulted into an apartment. And it's my apartment, but it's not my apartment. It's someone else's apartment. But in the dream, it was my apartment, and it was a kosher apartment. My home's kosher. So I was cooking kosher meals. And suddenly, as I'm cooking food, someone walks in unannounced into my apartment without a key and has food, non-kosher food. And they're ready to put it into my kosher oven. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Excuse me, ma'am, you're in the wrong place. This is my apartment. This is my kosher apartment. You have to leave. And I was very polite and showed her the door. And then someone else showed up with more food that wasn't kosher. Then they came into my house looking for my refrigerator and my oven to use. And I said, wait a minute, this is a mistake. You can't come in here. This is my house. This is my kosher house. Please take your food and go. And I thought, okay, that's it. I have to lock the door. Where are all these people coming from? And the next thing you know, before I had a chance to lock my front door, was a man with a giant animal, a disgusting, filthy animal. And he comes into my apartment, and I said, that's it. I'm not being nice anymore. You get your animal out of my apartment now. This is my home, my kosher home. Get out. And he looks at me helpless, and he says, I'm sorry, but I can't. This animal will not move. And I looked down at the animal, and the animal was filled with junk food, cheeseburgers, Tootsie Rolls, all kinds of garbage was coming out of this animal's mouth, and the animal was vomiting in my apartment. Wow. Can you figure it out? Any of that? I can. And I'm not going to figure it all out for you. I'm just going to tell you that back, I started this video with Rabbi Edelstein. And the Haredi people think that they have their kosher little apartment, right? Their kosher little home, their kosher little enclave in Lakewood, New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. Or B'nai Brak. And you're okay and you're safe. And the filth is over there. And we just have to keep separate. And it's okay. We send our kids to yeshiva and seminary, and we dress a certain way, and we're separate from the filth. And the dream sequence was telling you what? It was telling you in the Nancy Pelosi dream sequence that the nastiness is everywhere. My family was in the yard. There was a guy with a white kippah in her house, ready to hold her child. We're family, really, extended family. But my mother was there. My cousin was there. We're all in this together. And Nancy Pelosi, being Karen, is a white woman. And why is that suddenly a negative, evil thing, a shameful thing? You're ashamed to be a white woman, a Karen. Do you know, I have a lot of people in my lifetime that are Karen, and they're beautiful people, and suddenly it's a slur. You're going to fight racism with more racism? This is sane. This is sanity. This is the talking point of the Democratic Party. No, it's not good. Fast forward to my apartment, my kosher apartment. I'm safe in my kosher apartment, in my kosher Jewish Haredi community. They won't get me. Baruch Hashem, it's all Hashem. Hashem will send Mashiach, and we'll have a party, and all the filth will go away. No, it won't. No, it won't. Because in the Nancy Pelosi dream sequence, there were yellow life rafts. And the first responders to take a post were my kids. Do you know who my kids are? It's metaphorical. Do you know who my kids are? If you've read the Torah, part 2, you know who my children are. You know who I am. And so the first responders think they're safe. They're not responding because they have physical eyes that can't see until they're dead and their physical eyes are gone, and then they look through their soul and they can see. I'm Lori. I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother, but I'm Mashiach. That's who I am. And I'm talking to Hashem, and he gave me all of this stuff to throw at you today, and he called it GPS, direction to God's promised salvation. Can you make sense of this? I sure can. I can help you make sense of it. But I would suggest you noodle on this. Rabbi Edelstein couldn't see me when he was here. He sees me now. 3 men, 3 stooges standing before Hashem. They're fine. They're righteous. He's the crazy one. I'm okay. God sees through it all. And the party at Nancy Pelosi's house, Karen Pelosi, she's a white woman. Is that something to be apologetic about? Hashem just said, right now it is. Right now, we need to apologize for the color of our skin, for our ethnicity. We have to say we're sorry. That's not what we need to say we're sorry for. You're not safe, Jewish people. You think you're going to live in your little Jewish ghetto in Lakewood, New Jersey, or B'nai Brak, and they're not going to get to you, and they're going to get to you too. It's everywhere. It's everywhere and in every person. And we need to fish it out of you, one person at a time. You need to open your eyes. And if you need to get a new pair of glasses, please do. The first responders, who do you think they are? I'm going to end, for those of you who are still listening, with what Hashem told me today. I said to Hashem, I know who the Jewish people are. I've said it online. You're children. Why didn't you just create Jewish children? Why isn't everybody Jewish children? And you know what he said? Because I wanted a society. And everybody can't be family in a society. Do you understand his answer? He says, you don't. You want to understand? Call me. I have a pink iPhone. I'll answer.